Hi, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of the Layoff Legends podcast, where we come together to listen to layoff stories and relevant expertise with a focus on finding inspiration, encouragement, and guidance for the laid off tech community and beyond. I'm your host, Leo, a former Microsoft principal PM that was laid off last October, and I am thrilled to welcome another special guest to the podcast today, someone who has made tremendous impact in products and experiences that a lot of people don't know about. And so I'm really eager to hear her story and the impact that she's created. Dr. Dalia Perez, welcome to the Laid Off Legends podcast.
Thanks, Leo. It's really good to be here. Thanks
I'm
for
so
having me.
excited to have you. And I have a little bit of your work that I've been able to take a look at on the web. So I would love to just read that to the audience for them to get to know you a little bit better. Dr. Perez has worked at Microsoft, and the impact that I believe she has created here is it's really incredible. When we talk about these products that are accessible and really impacting the lives of others who may be marginally pushed aside based on how we build product. And so the innovation has been just phenomenal. She's worked on delivering diverse and representative avatars and accessible design and interaction for operating systems and application experiences, shipped avatars with accessibility features across the set of Microsoft products. She's managed and supported dynamic programming and budget for all mixed reality and employee groups at Microsoft, and has leveraged diverse stakeholders to influence inclusive product OKRs, which are really interesting because we have product OKRs and an inclusive product, which we're really looking forward to hearing a little bit more about that. Launch baseline representation features and avatars, including prosthetic limbs and assets informed by user research, to expand options for gender and racial/ethnic diversity. Again, just very humbling to see when you look at your avatar or your emojis and you could actually see yourself. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes there. Develop principles and frameworks to inform user research studies, design and build reviews, and improve representation and mesh avatars. Spearheaded partnerships and garnered media visibility through leadership of high impact projects, including Breonna's Garden and Blind Burners, two very special projects that we'll hear a little bit more about. And she collaborated with diverse content creators and award-winning stakeholders to provide technical partnership, improving diversity and accessibility in XR technologies. XR is virtual and augmented reality technologies. Dr. Dalia Perez, welcome again to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Now, when I read those, what comes to your mind? Do you look back saying, wow, I created all this impact? Do you look forward and say, oh my gosh, there's so much more to come? When you hear what you've done, I mean, how do you process that?
Yeah, thanks. It was cool to have you reflect back some of that work. As somebody who was also laid off recently in October from Microsoft, really doing that deep soul-searching reflection on what has my career been and what am I taking away from it? And kind of looking at my layoff as sort of like a graduation. Like, what can I be proud of? What have I accomplished? And where do I go from here with that? How do I integrate that into my next chapter? I came into product management from people work. I was reporting to chief of staff, doing strategy and operations. My entryway into Microsoft was doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work in business and for the team. Part of close partnership with a business is deeply understanding what are we building as a product, what are the people working on, and how are they engaging and dogfooding the products that we're building. A human-centered project, because quite literally, when you create an avatar for yourself, you're making something that is ideally in your likeness, especially in an enterprise non-gaming context. You want to create an avatar that looks like yourself. And when members of our own business, from engineering to design to research, were saying there's not enough assets that actually reflect me. There's not enough skin tones that match the way that I look as a Black employee, or there's not the right eye shapes so that I look like myself as an Asian employee. I raised a flag and said, I think that there's something missing in how we're building product, and it has an impact on our own people in business. And it sort of opened a runway and a non-traditional pathway for me into driving equitable product in the mixed reality business space. And it was thrilling. It's been really one of the most amazing creative career journeys of my life. I love hearing that list of accomplishments. I'm super proud of it. And I'm really curious where will I go next with that? And as we embark on the emerging technology of the day and AI, how do we think about equitable, responsible, representative technology that serves a global, diverse world?
Your journey is so inspiring. One of the things I like about what you were working on is that it was so behind the scenes, and a lot of folks don't appreciate the work and the research it takes to build a product that is global, that is that needs to be accessible to all. The more equitable and the more representative these products are, the more the successful they can be. But sometimes it's really hard to get that momentum going, especially in very, very large companies where you actually have to make the case, making the case for a lesser known customer or making the case for a customer that doesn't have the voice to speak up for themselves. And I see that reflected in your work.
Yes, it definitely is. One of the things that I had in my favor in getting traction for this work is that, especially in the accessibility space, there's regulatory compliance. So there's actually really clear expectations on what different kinds of software, what features and benchmarks they need to make to be accessible to people who are blind and low vision, deaf and hard of hearing. And part of the challenge of meeting those regulatory compliance bars in a new emerging form of technology in XR was that there is a lack of descriptiveness around how do you do something like captions, which we all understand as this like rolling bar of text in our 2D, um, context. And how do you apply captions to a space where some people may be speaking simultaneously and when people are closer or farther away? And so the spatial audio has nuance between the different speakers. And how do you have captions that make sense and aren't a jumble of text if there's multiple people in a room talking at the same time? So these are kind of some of the design challenges to inclusive and accessible tech in XR that we really tackled. It was like, yeah, we know we need captions, but how do we do captions in a way that's actually usable, that makes sense, and that's delightful for people, so that they can move around this space and communicate effectively in the space that is not a typical 2D framework. And really, the key to any kind of technology where you are partnering to make more access or more inclusivity is from inception having close design and engineering relationships with the people from those communities. So nothing for us without us is sort of like it's the design principle for any inclusive tech. So partnering closely with all of those community members from different disability communities, from different racial and ethnic communities is critical.
As you talk through that, what comes to my mind is just the absolute sheer complexity of this all. It's not just people in the same room. This is remote time zones, quality of microphones, internet connections, and how do you bring equity into that overall experience so those folks that are not in the room are just as represented. I love the way you put it, the design principle that undergirds everything that you all were working on. The amount of work that goes into this is really, really not seen. So hopefully during the course of this conversation, you could share a little bit more about the projects like Breonna's Garden that really created such an impact in the community. Let's go back a little bit to your time at Microsoft. And even before we talk about the layoff, would love to just talk about the culture on your team. Were you all remote in the same, were you in the same location? What were some of the dynamics at that time? Because the work that you were doing and the team that was working on this was actually quite large, if I remember correctly. I'm curious if you could walk us through some of the team and culture dynamics that you had before you all received the news.
The team and the culture went through so many different evolutions, in part because there was so many reorgs and changes in the mixed reality space. When I started on the team in 2020 it was on fire. It was COVID. It was George Floyd and Breonna Taylor had just been killed. Tech companies were hiring people to lead DEI efforts in their businesses. There was this excitement around the demand for having companies making sort of public declarations around equity, around justice, around human rights, and espousing an ethos of justice. And Microsoft did it, Meta did it, all the big players came out, and a lot of us were hired in 2020 to come in and do diversity, equity, and inclusion work in a time where there was really a need to figure out how do we create a bridge in the private industry to make avenues to talk about it, to make change and move the needle, from hiring to representation across the different levels to representation across the different disciplines, create a culture where people actually feel like they can bring their whole selves into a room. And I think COVID and remote work and being on a team, at the time it was 3,000 plus people. Folks were distributed all over the world. We had a team in Lagos, Nigeria, Dublin, Ireland, Cambridge. I mean, people were really distributed globally. So figuring out how do we create inclusiveness globally and create ways where, meetings are recorded, where async participation is normalized, where we are conscientious when we need to have decision making and stakeholders all together to choose time zones that are friendly to people. I think there was a lot of excitement around creating best practices and visibility. And then there was how do we return to a hybrid work environment, ask people in the room to keep their cameras on so that, so that you can still get this sense of togetherness on the call. And by nature of what we were building, which was a way for people to connect in the metaverse in their workplaces. I think during these times there was a lot of need. There was whole festivals and events that were hosted in Altspace VR, which was rest in peace. Altspace was like a social VR platform that Microsoft bought right before I joined the team. Burning Man was hosted in Altspace
Wow.
during COVID, and big conferences and events were happening in VR, which created a new paradigm for people that was like, okay, you're in Lagos, Nigeria, but in this world, we're right next to each other, sitting by a fire, roasting marshmallows. This sense of proximity and closeness that VR and AR can create for people is part of the magic of that technology, and I think created new ideas and possibilities of what does it mean to meet together when we're a global company and in a distributed world. So there was a culture of excitement, and there was also fractures and silos in the team, I think because of that distributed workplace that we were trying to figure out. But from platform to hardware to applications, people were working disjointedly and there was frustration. There was, efforts put into one direction and then quick pivots. That led to people feeling burnt out, people feeling disoriented. So many reorgs where people felt like exhaustion, I think, of restarting and reconnecting with new managers, with new teams, with new leaderships, with new OKRs. I think that by the time I left, I think Microsoft was all in mixed reality technology, and then there were shifts in the priorities. AI, there was a return to physical space and less of a need to be in a VR space. The shift in what business priorities are were real. And so even though there was still passion and engagement from people on the team, the lack of leadership investment, the lack of understanding, where's the North Star vision for this technology, I think is still a question mark. Is it way off in the future and we're still doing the bare minimum to figure this out? Or are there other players that are going to pick this up and go hard? I think there's still unknown questions across the industry as to where are we going with AR and VR, and lots of waves of layoffs. I think by the time mine came, I think you and I share the same layoff anniversary date, but I think that this was like 4 or 5 waves of layoffs in. So I had seen team members go, and that really impacted morale. That impacted my morale. Losing really close comrades and colleagues in the work, and feeling a lack of trust and security.
One of the things that a lot of folks share was the chaos. It was so much so the work that you all were doing because you're really working on a 0 to 1 product. You're trying to create a third space. You're trying to support people's non-physical presence and really bring a sense of inclusion and immersion and even the search for a viable, profitable business. But then there's also, I think, for these 0 to 1 projects, this need for clear leadership vision, courage, investment. So I think there was definitely a search for the answer at the product and at the leadership level, which was really manifesting in churn on the team.
Totally. Totally.
And the waves of layoffs, these were happening. A lot of folks that are listening right now are actually going through this. They're seeing some of these unanswered questions happening in their teams. Could you walk us through how your day started when you realized that you were getting laid off?
I had witnessed at this point several other rounds of layoffs and heard the kind of blow by blow from close colleagues and friends as to what the sort of scripted message was from the leader on the call, what the invite looked like on the calendar. And I knew all of the details. It sort of felt like an out of body experience. I was like, oh, there's that thing on my calendar that I've heard of 5 gazillion times now, and it's here on mine. And I had a early morning ping from a friend who was up earlier than me and saw the same invite on their calendar. So I had kind of an early text that, oh, this is happening. And that was sort of helpful for anyone who is worried or feels that spidey sense of, I just went through a reorg and I think this might be coming for me. I think something about being like, oh, here's what's coming. Almost all of us will have our cameras off, whether by choice or they sort of force the cameras off, and also like a forced mute. It will be probably a CVP level leader and an HR representative. And they'll tell you today is your last day at Microsoft. And sort of thank you for your service and you're free to go now, and sort of they kind of redo your rights as to what the next steps are from a really clinical perspective and a tactical perspective. The kind of information you're going to get in your inbox about next steps, what severance packages, what the next steps entails as you enter these layoffs. And that was a group layoff. So mine was in a call with 30 plus people. Most of the ones that I've heard of are large like this, and it's by discipline. So I was with all PM earlier in that same day. My design counterpart was also part of the design group layoff. Um, it's cordial. The leader that was on our call was actually, I felt like there was sort of a human level, like she was like, this is a really hard day. And she was like, I invite people to reach out to me personally if you want to talk. I mean, there was some that the off script little pieces meant a lot to me. And I think in some ways I got the sense that the layoffs come from way up above. My manager had no idea it was coming. It's sort of like at the end of the day, we are lines on a spreadsheet. And it's, in some ways, I appreciated that it wasn't personal. I was like, wow, I poured myself into this work. I put my heart into it. I got promotions. I got rewards. I felt like I was continuing to grow on this upward trajectory. How could I have been chosen to be laid off? But I'm like, well, it was my whole team, and it was multiple teams, and we were part of the business that was like, when you're in that 0 to 1, what is product market fit? The priority is not necessarily making it accessible and inclusive. It's like, is this actually even going to survive or have a market and make any profit, period? And so I could understand that decision had to be made, as hard as it was, from someone at the top figuring out a tightened budget.
Having a shared experience. Did that make it easier or was it
Definitely.
harder?
I think it made it easier for my ego that it felt sort of depersonalized. It also was hard on my ego in this way of like, gosh, I'm just a number. I'm just a line on a spreadsheet. But I got to look around at the names and the people who I was with, and I was like, these are people who I hugely respect, who I've worked closely with, who are so talented, and I felt in good company. We started a Slack channel. Right away, everyone under my manager was laid off, and we have like PM'd our way through the layoff. We had a daily stand up for a while. And one of the people in my immediate team did get hired right away at another company. I'm super happy for her, but it's been like a really nice support network to be job seeking with other people, sending links to roles, cheering each other on. The person who was my design counterpart ended up finding another internal role at Microsoft during the continuum period. I was really, really happy to hear that that was what he wanted. So there was a lot of community support that came out of it. But I think the other reality and thought is like, wow, this is a brutal market. It's a brutal market for PMs. And at that senior band, I'm like, my gosh, I'm out here with some of the most talented people I've been working with. We're all looking, I think, at some of the same roles, at some of the same companies. And that thought is also daunting. It's like a lot of like really talented unicorns competing
Indeed.
with each other for the same kinds of roles.
When I saw your team get laid off, and of course the mixed reality layoff was a huge thing at Microsoft. HoloLens was everybody was so excited about this work, truly visionary product and experience, and the level of technical depth that you had to be on your team was just absolutely incredible. It was a team I deeply respected. And so when I saw these layoffs start to happen, that was my aha moment.
Yeah.
The blow to a certain extent becomes softened when it does actually come. I love what you shared where to a certain extent you got a tip off the morning of, and because of that it was easier to manage when you actually had that conversation. So when you had it, what did you do after that?
It was a kind of a frenzy of we were all calling each other. And I was also texting my family and my husband, my friends. In some ways, I felt like on this adrenaline high of like, holy shit. In my mind, this felt like the worst thing that could happen. I've been terrified of being laid off my whole life. I'm consider myself sort of an overachiever. I have a PhD. I've always had a job lined up before I quit another job. I'm the daughter of immigrant and refugee parents. There's no like daddy's trust fund for me. So also having working is part of my identity, having like this kind of stability of a paycheck has been my reality since I'm a teenager. So the fear and kind of probably ancestral trauma of getting this like rug pulled out from under me was definitely like a worst nightmare kind of scenario. Like, oh shit, am I gonna lose my house? Am I gonna, what, like these sort of fears of like, are we gonna have to move back in with our parents? I mean, I really went to these worst case scenarios. Am I not gonna have like healthcare for my children, or like, am I not going to be able to provide for my family? And the fear of that, the grief of that, the adrenaline of, oh, this worst fear thing is happening, but also this kind of jacked up feeling of like, oh, the worst case scenario thing is happening. I'm still here and I'm okay. And I'm talking and I still feel joy in my body and I still feel alive and I still have synapses firing and ideas and creativity flowing through me. And I have this sense of okayness while I'm in the midst of something that feels like a huge life setback and a crisis. Was sort of an existential, interesting emotional feeling. One of my best friends called me and she was like, girl, you got the layoff glow. Like, what's going on? You look great today. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm terrified. I feel traumatized. And I'm like alive. I'm still here. And there was something that felt like a spiritual resilience. I feel like I was dodging layoffs for years at Microsoft. And I'm like, okay, I don't have to dodge anymore. This thing, I'm living it. It's happening to me. And it also feels like part of life. Like life is full of ups and downs. And I think we live in this like American culture where like Disneyland sun shines all the time and we want to just always be on the up and up and up and up. And there felt something human and real of I'm going through a valley. This is hard. All the metaphors. I'm walking on the coals. I'm in the cave. Like, this is the unknown. But I know from my own life experience and wisdom that every way that I feel proud and resilient and beautiful is because I've survived something really hard and ended up on the other side. I just know it. I know it as a parent. I have ancestors that went through really hard struggles. And I just know that the hard earned lessons that are about hope and surviving are this is it. And I'm also like, as far as setbacks and hardships go, my God, how lucky are we that this is it? I'm like, it's cheesy. I love my Peloton treadmill and I love those coaches. My God, they are so amazing. And I don't know if you have a Peloton tread. I'm such a nerd about mine.
No, they're folks who are just fanatics. They have their trainers, they have
No,
their times, they do it live, they compete. Are you one of those?
I definitely compete with people who are in the class with me. Like I've got goals around where I rank and hit. And I have the trainers that I'm obsessed with, and they're really great motivational coaches. And I was on this Peloton run and was kind of hating it. And this coach was like, "You get to be here today. You get to be here." And I think she read some sort of story about somebody who was surviving cancer and returning in remission to runs, and how lucky we are to be healthy enough to run. And it felt like this really good metaphor of, oh my gosh, it's so painful to be laid off and to be in this free fall of where am I going to land next? But also how amazing that I have at this point in life savings and that I get to search for probably a salary that is going to be where I make really good impact, and that I bring my value proposition, and that I get to be of service, and I get to contribute to my sense of purpose in the world. And how many people in Palestine, in the Congo, in Sudan, in places where there is famine, where there is war and genocide, would dream of getting to be where I am right now, which is with a huge network of support trying to help me land like a dream job. What a privilege. It's hard. Is it hard? Yes. Is it scary? Yes. Am I thinking of worst case scenarios still? Yes. And like I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. And what a privilege to be in this place.
I love the mindset. And I think that this is probably where we'd love to dig in a little bit more, because this is where people actually go from the shock and the pain and the disillusionment and disappointment, anger, to a sense of hope, faith, resilience. I'm curious if you were to sum up the mindset that's needed to take you from this low place to a place of perspective, optimism, what would that mindset be?
I think this is a time that requires a lot of patience. Actually, our shared mutual friend who introduced us gave me this great metaphor about learning how to surf. And since then, I've had so many people share surfing metaphors with me. In the first few months of my layoff, I did the spray and pray. LinkedIn applied. I'm sitting at my desk like I was still in an 8 to 6 Microsoft day, and used that time to craft cover letters, to create back-to-back meetings, and was really sort of like applying to everything. And um, I went through some interviews for things that were just sort of the first things that popped up. And the metaphor about surfing was, if you go for every wave, you're likely going to crash a lot and get really exhausted. And I think that's what I did. I was like, what's the first thing coming at me? Let's go. Let's try and catch it. Let's just like get to safety and see if I can just be like quickly triumphant. And what I learned is that I needed some time to like sit and feel the ocean, and to feel my grief, and to feel my fear, and to sit with the great unknown of, this is a huge wide world and I've done a ton of things in my career. And what is the right wave for me? And how do I be really strategic about feeling it, knowing it, being spiritually centered? I've been working on a daily meditation practice. Like, how do I know what is a yes for me? Because this is where I'm in my prime. I'm a person with a PhD. I'm deep in my career. I'm going to put really good life source energy into whatever my next workplace is. And so may it be right for them and right for me. And I've got to be in right relationship with myself to know when I want to hustle for that wave, and hustle hard and put a lot of energy. Not that it's a guarantee that I'm going to ride it. I might crash again and it might be really heartbreaking, but it's better than sort of thrashing around and going for anything coming my way indiscriminately.
I love the sense of
Yeah.
purposeful intentionality and taking the time to understand your voice first before becoming every other echo. This is who I am. This is what I'm looking for. These are my unique capabilities. Before we move on from this experience, one of the things I'm hearing consistently from others as well is they have this moment of self-doubt. And one of the things that's really helped is that they've had to go back and build their own ESPN highlight reel. And you hear from your circle and you hear from your friends. And that also begins a mindset. You talked about emotional resilience. Curious if you had that experience.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be inhuman to not feel a sense of doubt, a sense of a blow to the confidence of I wasn't chosen, or wondering like, does being part of a layoff sort of put a scarlet letter on me of I'm marked as not qualified, not worthy, not good enough? Is this going to sort of scar my career going forward? I think those are really natural feelings. And getting rejections from the spray and pray approach of applying to 20 jobs in a day where I may not have any network. Getting a lot of no's and also making it through like full loops that I poured myself into and getting no's. Like these things are hard. There's been days of sadness, of depression, of doubt, of am I good enough? Am I worthy? And so I love that metaphor of it creating an ESPN highlight reel. I think the antidote is to and it takes a lot of emotional labor, but to stay out of the dark and twisties and to grab onto the light and to remember, to feel pride, to remember accomplishments, to remember that I'm a badass and that I'm awesome and that I have incredible things to offer. And I did have a friend who is a coach reached out and she was like, I saw your post about being laid off. I want to offer you this coaching session that's called I think it's called this essence exercise that as you go through this period of unknown, let's remind you what your essence is. So I did this exercise with her and she gave me 3 days and had me reach out to 10 people in my life and ask them 2 questions. What shows up when I do? And what qualities do I bring when I enter a room? And my gosh, it was so, I encourage everyone to do it. It was such a beautiful thing. I mean, I got to talk with a former coworker, a few members of my family, my teenage son. Oof. It was, even though he starts his sentences with bro, all right? Like it was super, super sweet to hear. I had never asked people in my life that question of like, what are qualities that you see me bring into a room? And I transcribed notes from them. And then what this coach did is she took all the notes from these 10 different people and she looked for the themes across and collated them into these 5 words or phrases. And I've got it up on my screensaver. I've got it up on my wall right now. And it's been a really cool thing to glance at every day and remember who I am, what are qualities I bring to a room, and to stay anchored.
I love even the tactical things you're doing, putting this thing on your mirror and you're seeing it every day. Reminding yourself that this is who you are and this is what you're capable of and this is what you've achieved is such a powerful way of anchoring. There's always something about running towards versus running away and letting the tomorrow be greater than the yesterday. There's a quote I really love. It says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I think that having this coach just emerge and give you this lifeline that we're sharing with hundreds of people right now, that is an incredible opportunity for folks to take that exercise and actually do that and remind themselves of the power they bring, unbeknownst to them. They may just show up, but they're bringing life to others in the circle.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Yeah, I'm happy to share the name of this coach with you.
As we're getting towards the end of this conversation, you got to tell us about Breonna's Garden. You got to tell us about
Yes.
that. And then, of course, we'll put this information in the show notes so that folks can see some of the magic that you and the team created.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Breonna's Garden is one of the projects that I am the most proud to have been able to support and champion in my time at Microsoft. It's an augmented reality app where an artistically rendered version of Breonna Taylor comes up from wherever you place your anchor in the earth or on the floor of your living room. And Microsoft Mixed Reality team was able to offer technical and physical support for members of Breonna's family, particularly in the app, her sister appearing in a garden with Breonna and sharing memories of their childhood, memories of their life growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, things that she misses about her sister. Many people don't know that Janiyah Palmer, Breonna's younger sister, lived with her. She had a younger sister that wasn't home at the time, that lost her home with her sister, lost her sister. And project was so meaningful for Janiyah and for the family. And it was such an incredible time to sort of opened this question of how can this technology be used not just for productivity in meetings, but how can it be used as a place of storytelling, as a place of creation, as a place of memory building, as a place to plant flowers. We literally created a garden where people could share stories that appear as you touch flowers in the garden. You can hear memories of other people sharing their love of Breonna, their other loved ones that they've lost. And it's a place of peace, a place of hope, and this place of solace for the family. Actually, last week I listened to this interview on the Trevor Noah podcast with Dr. Ruha Benjamin, who's a professor at Princeton, and she was a moderator when Brianna's Garden went to South by Southwest a few years ago. And it was just really cool to hear her speak the other day on, I recommend this podcast. It's called RIP DEI. And she also talks about her continued participation in XR technology and storytelling. And she's part of supporting a project called the Phoenix of Gaza, which is showing people in Palestine, showing before and after images in VR of what Gaza was like before and after this most recent brutal assault. I just love that this technology has been used as a vehicle for telling stories that are not often told, and the power of empathy to be in this first person experience and to feel and see and hear and touch aspects of these stories that end up becoming ours at this kind of cellular level when we're that close to it. I think that project changed me for life.
I was exposed to this through our mutual friend, and the opportunity was just seeing how powerful storytelling can be when it's accentuated with the right technologies. We're not done with AR and VR just yet. I think that there is a human computer medium that we need to bridge. And, there are companies that will boldly get there. But I think that for us, the stories remain the same. The channel, the medium, and how we tell them, these become super different. And I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to learn about that. So thank you, and to you and the team for the work. Incredible. And we'll put those links in the show notes as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
what are you doing today? I mean, like, what are you doing on your piece of the planet right now?
Yeah, I love that question. I think there's been this process of expanding and contracting how I tell the story of who I am professionally. I'm not a square peg that fits in a square hole. And so, how do I be expansive enough and broad in the kind of Swiss Army knife of skills that I have, but not so broad that it's unclear? And so, getting more clear, getting more expansive, that's been part of the dance of this time. I have a friend who I think she's given me one of the best pieces of advice. And she was like, literally, until you figure out how to describe your cosmic pizza order of like, what do you want? Like, what's the clear answer to what's your ideal job right now? You're not going to get it. Part of the work is really getting that clarity of who am I and what's that ideal job and how do you say that in words that are clear. So that's been part of the process, is getting really clear about my storytelling of what do I want next. And right now I'm going for social impact roles, mostly in the philanthropic space. So looking at ways that I can bring all of my experience, both as a PhD in leadership and policy studies, and an educator, and my time as a technologist in a fast moving product making space, to be in a place to really provide impactful resourcing to new projects that can scale. I'm looking at Gates, I'm looking at Pivotal, I'm looking at the Seattle Foundation, I'm looking at the philanthropic orgs in my region. I'm excited to go back to the office. I'm excited to go to a place where I can be hybrid, in person, build work family, build work community, leave legacy, find like loving depth of relationships and creativity in a team. It's been really fun to think as a designer, like as a service designer in this. Like, I want to feel joy at work. I want to have like tons of fun. I want to work on really hard problems and feel in it with a team, in it with creativity, with laughter. Like, I'll put in really hard sprints, but then let's celebrate together.
Your future team, is lucky to have you. I think the journey that you have shared and also the things that you're talking about, I love this concept of be very specific on what you want and what you're looking for and how the universe is going to bring that to you. As we wrap here, quick questions. Best career advice you've received so far?
I think it's that cosmic pizza order. The universe is not going to give you what you want until you ask for it. What is it that I want? And what is it that I have to offer? And say it in words. Like, put it out there. Say what you want.
Your go-to piece of advice for someone on day one of their layoff?
Breathe, breathe, and like call your people, take a walk. And remember you're going to be okay. Like, you will land, you're going to be okay.
One tool or resource you wish you would have known about sooner?
It's a good question. I've been really grateful for unemployment this process. And I will continue paying into this forever. And I'm so grateful that we have this. So it's a helpful resource. They're really helpful. It's really humbling. And I'm like, this helps you get through. This is a resource that, God willing, the current powers of our country continue to protect and support.
What are you working on that folks can support? What's your passion right now? What are you into? And what can we point people to that you would like them to know?
There's so many things as far as causes and ways to pour yourself into community when we're in this time of unemployment and have maybe a little bit more, like, the gift that we have right now is time. I'm particularly passionate about supporting liberation for the people of Palestine, and so I've plugged into a lot of different community organizing for that. Currently supporting a social justice book drive. There's like some really great children's books around Palestine and Palestinian children. So finding resources to talk to my own family and kids, and supporting people talking at that level to children around this cause, I think is really important. This is a multi-generational topic that probably I hope is resolved in our lifetime, but I think will involve the next generation to lift us up. So I'm plugging into sort of family resourcing around that. I think the other piece of advice I have is I've stepped away from sitting in front of my computer all day, and I've started saying yes to some more consulting and kind of side gig projects that have put me in community and working on projects while I'm still looking for the next full-time thing. I'm going to be an adjunct faculty in spring quarter and teaching a class that is really exciting. And I've said yes to a professional development fellowship opportunity for Jews of color, and that feels really exciting. I'm going to level my tools as a consultant in culturally relevant evaluation. And these are sort of side gigs that are taking time away from like a full-time job search, but what they feel like is actual strategies to get closer to professional community building, and a really fun way to spend my days reading, thinking, being in the intellectual community, teaching, contributing while I'm still laid off and while I'm still looking for that full-time home and kind of love match. I've also made the joke that LinkedIn feels like my Tinder right now. I'm like, is this swipe left? Who is my love match? So yeah, like gig it, get into the gigs, say yes to, yeah, the health club
Yeah.
on the street asked if I want to teach a weekly Saturday dance fitness class. I'm like, let's say yes to that. Hopefully my next job appears in the same way. Like, we want you. We know you've got these skills. We know you drop it on the dance floor. Come lead our primetime Saturday morning dance fitness class. Hell yes. Say yes. Like, get out of the computer, get out of the house. And I feel closer than I have been to my next job because I'm doing these other things that fill me with hope and energy.
Well said. Well said. Say yes. Dr. Perez, thank you. What a conversation. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have met you and for us to have this conversation. Folks, thank you so much for the time. This has been another great conversation. The goal here is how do we tell these stories and how do we inspire and encourage others to lean in to many a times what could be something that could be devastating, but ultimately this is something that could be a slingshot to a great new beginning. And hopefully these conversations can help with that. So thank you so much, everybody. We will put all the resources that Dr. Perez mentioned in the show notes, and we look forward to seeing you again on another episode of the Layoff Legends podcast. Thanks, everybody, and we will talk to you soon.